In this video, firstly I will give you the background information you should know before touring the tomb of Nefertari. Secondly, the challenges that most tourists will encounter when visiting the site and the ways to overcome them. The last section is the information about the structure of the tomb chambers. In ancient Egypt, few royal women were more favored than Ramses II's Grand Queen Nefertari, and few could have played a more important role in the king's administration. She married him before he took the throne. Nefertari was 13 and Ramses was 15 when they married. As the chief wife of Ramses II, mother of the eldest son, confidant and political assistant, she accompanied him for 26 years. Ramses was in love with Nefertari. He called her the sweetness of love and bestowed upon Nefertari many honorable titles, from beloved of Mut, king's great wife, God's wife, mother of the king, hereditary noblewoman, to she for whom the sun shines. One of the most prominent titles was the mistresses of Upper and Lower Egypt. Usually only pharaohs were entitled to such honors. As a woman, she was unprecedented, rewarded with her own temple at Abu Simbel. This royal couple have a total of 6 children. Among them, the eldest daughter, Merit-Amen, was adopted by Ramses II as his wife after Nefertari's death. From a modern ethical perspective, this may be a strange relationship, but for the Egyptian royal family it was a perfectly normal relationship aiming to keep the blood pure. Nefertari died around 1250 BC. As a starting point for her journey into the afterlife, Ramses II built a tomb of astonishing beauty for the love of his life in the Valley of the Queens in Luxor, Upper Egypt. It is QV66, the tomb of Nefertari. The size of the tomb surpasses that of other known queens. The most impressive is the 483 square meters of exquisite murals on the wall of the tomb chambers, which depict Nefertari's journey to the afterlife. In front of these fascinating murals that have survived 32 centuries, you may not only be amazed, but also curious about the funerary objects that had been stolen in ancient times. The burials of a young king like Tutankhamun have shocked the world, not to mention a great queen like Nefertari, who is of higher status, being loved and lived in prosperous times. They must be the artistic treasures as same valuable as these stunning murals, worthy of Nefertari's unparalleled beauty. Sadly, even the mighty Ramses the Great was powerless after his death to prevent his beloved wife's tomb from being looted. Before enjoying this unparalleled beauty, I would like to point out the challenges that most tourists will encounter when visiting the site and the ways to overcome them. For those audiences who do not plan to visit this tomb, you could just skip this episode and watch the next episode for a guided tour inside the tomb chamber of Nefertari. According to the regulations of the Antiquities Office, each tourist can only stay in the tomb for a maximum of 10 minutes and the guiding service is not allowed. According to my experience, most tourists would feel at a loss when faced with such fascinating and rich murals and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Just like an unprepared student who takes an exam and still fails to hand in a satisfactory answer at the end of the exam, troubling by the sense of urgency brought about by the time limit and the frustration brought about by the inability to interpret the contents of the mural. If you have watched the last video, you may remember that I mentioned how I felt when I visited QV66 for the first time. It was a mixed feeling of fascination, surprise, shock, panic, and satisfaction. Although I can easily identify the gods and the contents from the Book of the Dead, but how can one not feel flustered and anxious when it comes to admiring nearly 500 square meters of murals within 10 minutes? Due to the different level of knowledge each tourist has, I roughly categorized their experience of visiting the Nefertari tomb into 3 different realms. The first type of tourists do not understand the content of the murals, nor the direction to appreciate the murals and the correct route touring each space. They were simply amazed and fascinated by the gorgeous and colorful bas-relief murals. The second type of tourists could understand the content of the murals, but they would feel flustered. It is precisely because of the ability to understand the content of the murals that more time will be required for appreciating the details of the murals. The 10-minute time limit makes it difficult to admire these fascinating art treasures in a leisurely manner. In my opinion, being able to read the contents of the tomb murals is only a technical matter. The most valuable, beautiful, and of course the least accessible experiences belong to the third realm. It requires the visitors to be proficient in reading the tomb murals, familiar with the background information of the tomb, such as the history and structure of the tomb, the correct touring route inside of the tomb, and the romance between Ramses the Great and Nefertari, etc. This sounds like an Egyptologist. Indeed, it is no easy feat to get to that level. Almost no tourists would take their time to do a preview study before the tour, and there is no such information available online for reference. Even the guidebook sold at the entrance of the Queen's Valley contains some wrong information. But as long as you watch this episode 10 times before the tour, I am sure you could easily overcome above-mentioned challenges and enjoy your tour inside of the tomb in a relaxed and enjoyable way. Life and love are the eternal themes on the earth. The limited time span of our life makes love seem extremely precious. And love has the power to elevate our limited life. The Tomb of Nefertari is an ideal place to ponder and comprehend such themes. This series of videos would be powerful references helping you understand the tomb murals and the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians about faith and life through these fascinating scenes of the journey to the afterlife. They would enable you to have a dialogue with these time particles that have traveled through 3,200 years in a calm and immersive way, and use them as a medium to sneak into the spiritual world of Nefertari and feel her joys and sorrows. Such as the sweet heartbeat memories of Nefertari and Ramses the Great in her past life, the unbreakable love and affection at the time of life and death, her calm and graceful demeanor when she faced the challenges of the afterlife journey alone and paid her respects in front of the gods. The Tomb of Nefertari can be divided into 2 floors and 9 spaces according to the tomb structure. The first is the staircase A that connects the ground and the entrance to the underground tomb. Follow this steep 18-step staircase to the basement level. The first space after entering from the entrance is the antechamber. On the east side of the antechamber is the side chamber of the antechamber, which are connected by a small vestibule. On the north side of the antechamber, you will find a stairs BY leads you to the basement 2 of the tomb. Like the early 18th dynasty burial chambers in the Valley of the Kings, the burial chambers of Nefertari's tomb are supported by columns. The Queen's pink granite sarcophagus once rested among 4 pillars. On the east, west, and north sides of the burial chamber, there is a small side chamber connected to the tomb respectively. They were used to store Nefertari's funerary items, including those she used while she was alive and will be needed again after her death. The ceiling of the tomb chambers was painted in dark blue and dotted with golden stars. The white walls of the tomb were decorated with colorful and vivid bas-relief frescoes taken from the Book of the Dead, depicting parts of Nefertari's journey to the afterlife and the important spells needed to travel through the underworld. Although the tomb chambers were built along a north-south axis, both the layout of the interior of the tomb chambers for sacrifices and the Nefertari sarcophagus were arranged along an east-west axis. It reflects the daily cycle of the sun god traveling back and forth between the earth and the underworld. So following the sun god's journey through the underworld, Nefertari could live forever.
O Mother Newt, stretch yourself above me, that I may be set in the midst of the eternal stars within you, and that I may never die.